Hello, dear listeners. This is your host slash editor, Catherine, and I'm just popping up here to say that in this episode I had some problems with recording. That's why sometimes my audio disappears for a couple of seconds and the audio isn't quite synchronized at some places. That's a temporary problem and it will be fixed in the future episodes. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Bye.
Open Channel D. Hi, I'm Hannah.
I'm Logan.
And I'm Catherine.
And welcome to today's episode of Cocktails in Waverly's Office.
Today we'll be looking at the Mad Tea Party affair, which is I think it's a really good episode. Like it's actually really good. It's not
really
like the ones we talked about
Yeah.
last time. So Hannah, you want to go into it?
Sure.
Summarize it.
So, the Mad Tea Party affair, alas, no one actually has a tea party, but what ends up happening in this episode is that U.N.C.L.E headquarters in New York is supposed to be hosting some kind of conference of world leaders. And because of that, they are being very, very careful about security. They're making sure that everything is all set so that it's safe to bring these world leaders in there. And we have a secondary plot that at first seems unrelated, where a very eccentric man seems to be sort of playing practical jokes on U.N.C.L.E headquarters. And it's not really clear in the beginning whether his practical jokes are actually intended to be harmful or not. But the episode starts with this man flying an airplane, a remote control, like toy airplane, into the roof of U.N.C.L.E headquarters and causing a whole lot of consternation within the U.N.C.L.E building as they try to figure out, A, who's doing this and why and whether or not it's dangerous. And then much of the rest of the episode is dedicated to Ilya and Napoleon and Waverly kind of trying to figure out why these various very strange happenings are occurring in the building. They have issues with the doors opening and closing wrong, and the walls being electrified, and the water taps having fish come out of them. And while all these crazy things are happening, they also have an unexpected visitor in the form of this week's Innocent, who is dumped unceremoniously into U.N.C.L.E headquarters by the eccentric man named Mr. Hemingway. And she is really freaked out about all of this and does not know how she got here and is very uncomfortable with everything that's going on. So Napoleon and Ilya also kind of have to be babysitting her, while all the while Riley, who is an U.N.C.L.E agent who is a double agent for Thrush, is trying to make the table in the conference room into a bomb so that all of the people in the U.N.C.L.E headquarters will be exploded when they are there waiting for the talks to occur. So, essentially, what ends up happening is that there is an overlap between these two plots near the end, where we find out that actually Mr. Hemingway is Waverly's brother-in-law, and that he was hired specifically to test the security measures U.N.C.L.E had in place. And it turns out actually their security measures sucked a lot. And so they spend, some time kind of getting their comeuppance essentially, but also they manage to thwart Riley and prevent the heads of state all over the world from being blown up by an explosive table.
And by the way,
sorry. And if all
explain
of that...
how. Okay. I just want to clarify how the explosive table works.
Yeah, but we can do it later because summary is so.
It just seems weird just to say explosive table without knowing how it actually works. But we can get into it later.
I was only going to say as my last bit that this sounds like a totally bananas plot, and it is, but also it actually works really well, and like all the pieces do end up slotting into place, and it doesn't really feel like this is an episode with a lot of like wasted subplots, despite the fact that so much of the episode is actual insanity occurring.
Oh yeah, so much insanity. I mean, it's called Mad Party.
Not just one mad, two mads.
And one of them was underlined, I think, so.
Correct.
and the innocents calling the Uncle headquarters a chrome and gun. Is it chrome and gunmetal madhouse? Yes.
Yeah.
Chrome and gunmetal madhouse, which is also the name of a really old gay Man from Uncle fanfiction archive.
I loved that line without even knowing that, because as soon as the series shifts into color in the next season, it becomes clear that actually that's totally wrong, because there's nothing about Uncle Headquarters that would make you think it was chrome and gunmetal.
More like cardboard.
Yes! This is a cardboard and plaster madhouse! Just doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Uncle Headquarters, it's made out of cardboard.
I don't know why they invite the heads of state here.
Yeah, so, I remember we were saying that like maybe Uncle is not that significant, but then they're having like these heads of state there, so I'm like.
Although, to be fair, in the scene where they actually they don't really show the heads of state near the end, but they do show a table where all the heads of state have like dropped off their like coats and stuff on the way in, and it's like a pith helmet and like. There's a bunch of stuff that's like, those are the heads of state's clothes? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. I can't imagine why a like actual head of state would wear a pith helmet.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, a pith helmet even fictionally has like a very specific sort of connotation to it, and it's not like I run a country.
It has colonialist explorer vibes.
Yes.
And that's not I run a country vibes.
So I feel like there's a lot to like about this episode, and I think one of the few things that is kind of a, not necessarily a misstep, but a bit of a in this episode is in fact, as Logan brought up, the exploding table.
I mean, it's such a fun concept.
Yeah. It's just like how the exploding table works is that like they have like the table itself is like coated in like this plastic coating that's like explosive, but like it doesn't it's not exactly like the thing that's meant to trigger the explosion. It just continues with the explosion, because the real beginning trigger of the explosion is with the ashtray, where like apparently like they're assuming like they, as in like, God, what's his name? The double agent dude.
Riley,
yeah. Riley's like, oh, of course there'll be someone who will be smoking and put it in this ashtray, and then the ashtray will explode, and that'll make the table explode, which is, the table is supposed to destroy all of Uncle HQ, but I have to say, like, I think that, judging by how big the explosion was from the ashtray, because, like, the ashtray does explode, but it doesn't explode the table, because, like, Riley, like, pushes it off the table. Yeah, I think the table would just probably explode the whole room maximum.
Yeah. Although they did say that, I think they said that the entire tabletop is actually made of plastic explosives, not just like a coating.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I thought it was a coating.
Yeah, I think the whole entire table basically is a bomb.
Yeah. And this could be quite a big explosion, I think, because, I mean, you can explode a house with as much explosives, I think. So.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story is, most of the episode actually, like, even though it's silly in a lot of ways, like, it's smart silly, but the exploding table is probably one of the few things that's kind of like, okay, that's actually a super stupid plan, Riley. And part of the reason it is a super stupid plan is that the ashtray that they are using as the detonator for the table. So supposedly the table is made out of some kind of explosive that can only be triggered by another explosion. So, like, if you light the table on fire, it won't explode. But if you explode something on the table will explode, which I don't know enough about explosives to say that that's not possible, but it doesn't sound possible.
Yeah, but also what really took me out of it was the fact that the ashtray burned for like a pretty long time.
So long!
Yeah,
yeah!
It was like a minute almost, and I think if it was during this time, somebody would probably get rid of it.
Yeah, it's so to provide some context, near the end of the episode when they discover that the conference room is going to explode, Napoleon and Amelia basically drag all of the people who have been involved in this episode into the conference room and say, we're just gonna sit here until someone confesses or the room explodes. And so at some point, Kay, who's the innocent, starts smoking, and she puts her match in the ashtray. And when that happens, the ashtray starts to, like, smoke and fizz. And it's, like, very obvious that something is wrong. Like, it's like a sparkler, basically. And it goes on like that for, like, a good 45 seconds before Riley, like, gets upset and swats it off the table so it won't explode. And it's like, I don't know about you, but if I were in, like, a staff meeting and all of a sudden something on the table started, like, spitting and hissing and sizzling, I would be like, we should leave.
Especially since they already expected explosion, like that sounds like a viable precursor to an explosion, and they expected an explosion to happen. So, like, yeah.
My mom was trolling me.
But anyway, that to me is the only part of the episode that's kind of just like, this is dumb. And the rest of the episode is just delightful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because I started watching it in a pretty bad mood yesterday, but as I was watching it, I was just so happy. It's one of those episodes that are genuinely very entertaining, and I think it's a good first episode to watch for anybody.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a good first episode of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Like, I definitely, like, if I eventually ever show my dad The Man from U.N.C.L.E. so he can think it's not pedestrian anymore, I think I'll show him that. But I don't know if that might make him still think it's pedestrian, because it is a goofy episode, but in a good way. You can't please him that much, but then again, like, he watches some weird stuff, so, like I watched Blackula with him, so...
I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's a really goofy episode. It's just a pretty intense episode, but with humor, I would say. It's not, like, funny. It's not season 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, a lot of weird stuff happens in the episode, but it's actually, the first time you watch it especially, it's genuinely unsettling that these things are happening, because they don't know why, and it's very sort of, the things that Mr. Hemingway does are very surreal, and if you were ever really put in a position where those kind of things were happening at your place of work, particularly if you were concerned about some kind of security issue, it would be really scary. It doesn't matter that what he's doing is technically mundane, because it shouldn't be happening at all.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, I was convinced that Mr. Hemingway was gonna be secretly working with Riley, like, even even when Waverly said that like he was his brother-in-law, I was like, oh god, is Waverly in on it? Because I just didn't trust Hemingway that much. I literally just was like, this guy is really suspicious. I don't trust him at all. Like, why is Waverly acting like that? Did he like drug Waverly or something? I don't know. Did he hypnotize Waverly? Like, literally, like, I was so convinced he was going to be a bad guy. Like, it literally took me until like the very end of the episode for me to recognize that he wasn't. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good suspense story, right? Because we don't know what's happening until the very end. And it's like a detective story, I would say.
I would agree with that.
And when Napoleon got everybody in that room, it was like a very Agatha Christie-esque scene in a way, because
yes, yeah,
like Poirot and all the other detectives that he wrote, she wrote. Sorry. So I think we should talk about the beginning of the episode, which is Mr. Hemingway gets a toy plane.
So the episode actually opens on Central Park, and there are some children in striped shirts running around in Central Park, and they offer to help a very suspicious man with a hat and a mustache fly his toy airplane. And he says, okay, yeah, sure, you can be my ground crew, and he has these two boys hold the end of the wings. And he sets the plane aflight. And it's really interesting because the kids actually ask him, like, about the way that he's controlling it, and his response is basically, it's fine, kids, it's a suicide mission. This is also totally, like, not related to anything, but I noted that his remote control had the, like, Motorola symbol on it, which I thought was really interesting.
Is it sponsored?
Yeah, I was like, is Mr. Hemingway's suicide plane sponsored by Motorola?
Yeah, I don't know, because, like, I actually, it was really interesting. I was reading the comments of someone else's analysis of this episode. Like, someone in the comments was like this person who was alive in the 60s, and they said that they were surprised to see, like, a fully, like, radio operated plane, like, in the 60s, because they said that they usually, like, toy planes were operated on, like, a little wire. So,
Yeah.
like, maybe it was, like, showing off, like, look at this cool technology from Motorola.
I mean, it very well could have been. I think that the earliest, I shouldn't say this without doing research on it, I guess, but I think that the earliest radio-controlled planes were from Japan. But I'm not 100% certain, so don't quote me on that.
Oh yeah, and Motorola is an American company, so it's like they were trying to show that we have some technology here.
Maybe, yeah. Radio-controlled aircraft. Let's see. What does it say about the history of radio-control aircraft?
Yeah, we gotta fact check this person in the comments section on this blog. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this is not something I can do while also carrying on a conversation. So, you win this time, person from the 1960s.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a great sort of opening because it's really mysterious. Like, we have no idea what's going on when this episode opens. We don't know who this guy is. When he says very cheerfully that it's a suicide mission, of course, you jump immediately to the idea that, like, this is going to be dangerous. No. And then it cuts to the inside of U.N.C.L.E. headquarters, where immediately just the first thing we see is that an alarm is going off, and Ilya and Napoleon are running to, like, the console in Waverly's office. And they see and hear that this plane is going to be flying into the roof, and so they need to go and They need to go and destroy it with the uncle laser.
Yep.
And then it doesn't work.
As you do, you just have a laser beam on the roof of your work.
It's kind of very Star Wars, but maybe Star Wars was very meant for Uncle.
I've read a Star Wars Man from Uncle crossover fic, and it actually was really good. Maybe I should find it and recommend it if I knew the name of it, but I don't know the name of it, so, well.
Yeah, so
anyway.
basically, they fail to destroy the plane before it lands on the roof, and it's very funny, because, like, the whole building goes into like, what's it called, like, alarm mode, and everybody falls to the ground. And there's this lady who is tracing the plane, and basically Napoleon and Lydia have to cover her with bodies. I think it was funny because somebody on Tumblr actually took a screenshot of her after this scene, and she looks so kind of like distraught, and they captioned it like, she knows it will never happen again.
This whole scene, I literally made me think that, like, I bet Uncle has, like, emergency drills.
See, I actually feel like based on how all the agents behaved during this, they don't have emergency drills.
Because, like, literally, like they said, like Napoleon said to get cover, and, like, the agents just flopped onto the ground in the hallway, not covering themselves at all.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Like, at least get in a door frame or under a desk or something, but they all just are like, lie on the ground!
So
I also... Sorry.
I guess it was to show that they were kind of like self-assured because they thought that they had defense working and stuff. But Mr. Hemingway was there to show that they actually didn't have it all covered.
Yeah. There were a couple things that happened during the whole lockdown scene that I thought were super delightful. And the first is that in the very brief moment where you see Napoleon and Ilya running to Waverly's console, in the background of the shot, you can see Ilya's pointy box. You recall in one of the earlier episodes, Ilya is fighting like a wooden box with knives stuck into it with a samurai sword.
Yes!
Well, his pointy box makes a reappearance in this episode very briefly in the background.
I didn't notice that. I shouldn't even know what you meant when you said pointy box. I guess I blocked that out.
And so I mentioned that as I've been rewatching some of these episodes, my husband has been watching them with me, and I yelled when I saw that. I went, Ilya's pointy box! And my husband just turned and looked at me like, what? So, I was very surprised to note that it had come back, and it was gently swinging, which implies, I think, that they were using the pointy box again. So, I don't know why Mr. Waverly, A, lets, his agents practice sword fighting in his office, and B, why he lets them do it with knives typed to a box. But I'm glad to know that...
Like, you can get a bad injury from that very
but
easily.
But also you know that Ilya would type a knife to a Roomba.
100%!
Roomba? Did you say Roomba?
Yeah, tying a knife to a Roomba, that's a thing.
What? Oh yeah, it is. I think I've seen memes.
And he would chase Napoleon around with its knife. But yeah, so I enjoyed the return of the pointy box. I also enjoyed that there is a point where they're looking at the plane on the video, and Napoleon is like, get closer, and it is 100% the 1960s equivalent of what they do in every police show, where they're like, zoom and enhance. And then, hold on, there was one other thing that I thought was super funny, but I've forgotten what it was. But it's a great scene. It's very, like, there's a lot of kinetic energy, like, there's a lot of people running around, all sorts of noises and explosions and, you know, people freaking out are happening, and it's really great.
I have to say that, like, after, like, the laser beam fails and the toy plane goes into the roof and it doesn't explode, then Napoleon and Ilya, they go up onto the Uncle headquarters roof to check it out, to see what it was, and they're surprisingly willing to just go in and touch it, even though, like, they were thinking it might have an explosion explosive in it, because, like, it could like still work. It just might not have been activated right. So, but, like, I guess they don't care, so they're just gonna go right in and see what's in it.
Yeah, they do not exercise an abundance of caution investigating this airplane.
Yeah, and I mean, when they touch it, it says, like, boom, you're dead, or something like that, right?
Yeah,
they find a piece of paper that says "boom, you're dead" on it in the plane.
Okay, so the thing about the pointy box, I think that they simply reused the footage from another episode because they actually did it pretty well.
They could have, but it's a weird moment where, like, it's filmed from a very different angle than any of the stuff in the episode with the pointy box, which makes me think that they might have just reused the prop.
So, my personal favorite prop is RoboPet. I mean, it's what I call it. So, I will show it to you.
Oh, one of the other things that I wrote down. Oh, yes, I remember it. It's so cute.
It looks like
it kind of looks like
a bunny.
Yes, the Robo Bunny.
It actually looks like a character from a Soviet cartoon when he became a robot, and it was a very scary scene from my childhood.
One of the I'm remembering now, one of the other things that I noted in the scene where they were they're all ducking and covering is, so there's a woman who's running the roof radar, and she's the one that Napoleon and Ilya, like, tackled to the ground. But she seems to be the only person who knows how the roof radar works, other than Ilya and Napoleon, which seems like a really bad idea, considering Ilya and Napoleon are usually not in the building.
Yeah.
It's like, the only two people in the building who actually know how to use the roof laser are the two people who are usually in Egypt.
Yeah, this episode has this really weird vibe because, like, Napoleon and Lydia have to do everything needed, but at the same time, there are so many other uncle agents, and you really don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, there's a definite sense that so we've joked before about the fact that if Napoleon and Ilya are the best uncle agents, then that says a lot of very bad things about the rest of the organization. And I feel like this episode proves that, because the rest of the uncle agents all are just like, oh no, get on the floor, and Napoleon and Ilya are the only ones who are doing any work.
And in the scene when they had to hide when the plane landed, it was funny because there was a desk right beside them, and they didn't get under
it. Yeah. They're very beautiful and very stupid.
I love them.
So, the overlapping plots in this episode. So we have Mr. Hemingway and his sort of, like, his timed distractions that he's doing in order to show them that their security is lacking and that they need to be more careful. But then we also have Riley, the tech guy who is trying to sabotage the meeting and blow up all the heads of state. And from the very beginning, he's super suspicious because Waverly is like, oh yes, Riley is late, and, we don't know what to do until he gets here. And we find out that the reason Riley is late is because he's hanging out with a thrush agent named Dr. Egret.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Yeah, this is... And actually, she shows up again in the Girls of Nazaroni affair, which we'll talk about later.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of recurring characters, but she is one of them.
Yeah, and she's like this. Yeah, she's this this really I I don't know how to explain it, but there's I can't explain it. Please take over. I can't explain her. She's too cool.
Well, I think my favorite part of Dr. Egret, so her whole thing is she's a thrush scientist and she's invented this new invention that's like a pen that you can use to crack someone's skull and destroy their brain. And
their brain becomes homogenized.
Which is a horrifying thing to say about flesh.
Yeah.
Brain soup.
But when she explains this to Riley, she is just, so sweet about it. She's very cool, she's very collected, and she's vaguely affectionate as she basically, smiles, hands him this murder pen, and is like, it'll turn your brain into corn pone. She's really delightful in a, horrible murdering kind of way. And then the moment Riley leaves, she peels her face off and becomes a different woman.
Yep. In another episode, when she reappears again, she had, a completely different person playing her.
Yeah, she's so cool. That's what I was trying to say. I was so speechless, because literally, she's just, Uncle doesn't have, cool, doesn't have, somewhat morally off, female scientists making pens that homogenize brains.
Logan, I feel like this and there's a lady in, she's the one that wears pants. And I'm forgetting what
Gervais?
Yes, I feel like between this and Gervais, I'm getting the feeling that, your exception for women is thrush scientists.
Yeah, that's I am gay and female thrush scientist sexual.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Logan has a lot in common with financial, maybe.
Yeah. So I was saying that I wouldn't sleep with a thrush agent, but I'm like,
who wouldn't?
So another interesting thing about Dr. Egret is that she is played by Lee Merriweather, and she played the Catwoman in the Batman movie, actually. Only in the movie, not in the show.
That is very interesting.
So, she is quite iconic, and she's very attractive, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I feel like I saw something else with her in it recently, but I can't remember what it was.
Apparently she was in a whole bunch of 60s stuff, even in Star Trek and other things as well, Mission Impossible and Dr. Kildare, but of course nobody watched Dr.
Kildare. But yeah, so she's in charge of both the murder pen and also the one who comes up with the exploding table. And one of the one of the things she has Riley do in the scene where she gives him the murder pen is she says, okay, I want you to tell me my plan, just so that I know that you know it. And it's great because, like, it's just a bald-faced excuse to have exposition about the exploding table. But Riley, like, stands there and tells her own plan. And it works because it's just such a, like, typical man from U.N.C.L.E. weird, kinky, psychosexual power dynamic thing.
Yep.
Yeah. And she's also like, I like to be mindful of my own breathings.
Which, you know what, Dr. Egret, that's fair. Unfortunately, she is not in most of the episode. She disappears after she peels her face off and runs out the window. And then the main lady who is in this episode is, in fact, Kay, who is the innocent in this one. And Kay is a really, really, really strange character.
She's probably one of my favorite, and she's probably one of my favorite innocents for it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, because I feel like she very easily, based on her personality, could have been absolutely unbearable, but instead she's just, like, so strange and delightful, and, like, you're totally rooting for her to have a good time.
Yeah. She like this very, a bit neurotic, I would say. She certainly has some anxiety issues, and it's pretty relatable. And she's also like, I don't know, I'm kind of emotional, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So, to provide a little bit of context, Kay ends up in the U.N.C.L.E. headquarters because Mr. Hemingway assaults her with a hot dog.
He just kind of like wipes the hot dog on her dress.
And then it's like, oh no, you have hot dog all over your dress. I'm so sorry that this happened. Let's bring you over to this tailor right here, and he can help you. And he pushes her into Del Floria's, and then he knocks her into the changing booth that leads to U.N.C.L.E. headquarters, and then he pulls out a device that, activates the door and throws her into U.N.C.L.E. headquarters in that way. And Del Floria is like, what the hell? Which is great, like usually...
For a brief second, maybe he just was like, oh my god, an actual customer! It's all ruined.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like actually Del Floria does not get a lot of lines. Like, he's a recurring character, but he's not someone who has much to say. And in this particular episode, he's about to come to blows with Mr. Hemingway. It's really funny watching Del Floria get, super agitated about the fact that this guy is like, I'm sorry, I'm just using your door, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically later, of course, everybody is very agitated because nobody knows who Kay is and how she got in. And Napoleon and Lydia have to investigate her because they apparently do everything in the headquarters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do the whole bad cop, good cop routine.
Yeah, their good cop, bad cop is delightful, at least partially because they actually have a discussion about it beforehand, and the actual, discussion is something like, Ilya says, you always play the good cop. Like, why can't I be her friend and confidant this time, and you be the, bad guy? And Napoleon is like, yes, but you're so good at playing the bad guy. And Ilya immediately relents and is like, oh, fine, I'll go be the bad guy.
I bet they have this conversation in sexual situations.
Oh my. I feel like this is heading in a deeply non-PG-13 direction, but
I'm sorry. Let's go back to just interrogation.
Well, no, now you've got me on a tangent. I cannot see Napoleon managing to bring any amount of legitimate menace into the bedroom.
Yeah, but also now we know that Ilya likes a bit of praise. I want to thank our listeners for existing, I guess. Because we have no regard for you at all.
We just say whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
Filters are for other podcasts.
Yeah.
Talk about the fact that Mr. Hemingway is Waverly's brother-in-law.
Oh! Literally, I just was like, oh my god, making that his brother-in-law means that if you want to be, respect the canon and to have any fic with, Waverly's family in it, then that means that you gotta include the Mr. Hemingway.
Yeah, and, I was editing the old podcast yesterday, and you, Logan, you really pushed the headcanon that Angelique is so I guess Mr. Hemingway
Angelique Hemingway.
And it's even more cursed than just shipping Waverly and Hemingway.
I feel like...
Oh yeah, Waverly.
That's like a brand of chips.
I'm so good at generating random ships. I think maybe let's see if I can generate a real. No, I'm not going to generate a random ship right now. I can do that later.
The idea that Hemingway could be Angelique's brother makes it all the funnier that he actually is not working for Thrush. Do you think she's disappointed in him? Oh my god, you had the opportunity to undermine Uncle and you didn't? And he's like, that's your husband, you jerk! This is too complicated of a headcanon.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, one of the most iconic things Mr. Hemingway does is after he pushes Kay into the Uncle headquarters, he actually threatens the Floria with a gun. And then he just bites the tip off.
Yeah!
And he eats the gun.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. I've got bullets in my tummy.
I literally wrote in my notes, he eats his gun, ... Not like that.
What do you think it's made of? Because at first it was chocolate, but he was chewing for a really long time.
Jerky.
Maybe it was licorice. Jerky!
Yeah! Jerky bullets!
Jerky gun is so good!
This is my jerky gun. It's made of cured meats.
It's awful.
So yeah, he eats his gun, but not in like a death way.
Yeah, I mean, it's made of something, I think, sweet. Maybe it's caramel. I don't know.
Toffee gun.
Wow.
Yeah. I think because, like, you know, it's black and white, too, so that makes it a bit harder to tell. It's just like, it's just like if it's made out of something weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I first thought it was chocolate because people do things out of chocolate all the time. But he was chewing it for a really long time, so I got confused. That's why I'm being it.
Yeah, if it is chocolate, then there's something wrong with it.
Yeah. It felt like licorice to me. But I don't know.
I want to know, like, in the prop department, like, was the guy who was told you have to make a gun out of licorice or a gun out of jerky, like, what? It makes me think of that episode of Star Trek where apparently, like, they kept getting the dailies back and the people who were working on them kept correcting the color of the green woman's skin because they were like, something's wrong with this film, and they were like, it's an alien! And I feel like being told, like, you have to make a licorice gun, like, someone might have been like, that's probably a typo. Kept giving them guns made out of other things, and they were like, no, we actually want a candy gun. Give us a candy gun. Also, I feel like we should note that Kay's backstory is that she is about to get married, and it's supposed to be like this...
She's gonna be marrying an actual teddy bear.
Yeah, so the guy she's going to be marrying, it's supposed to be this weekend, and he tells her right before she gets hot dogged. Oh, nope, wish I hadn't said that. Before she gets smeared with mustard, he says that they might have to postpone the wedding. And she's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, my coworker wants to go fishing. And so, like, I might have to do his job while he's fishing. And she's like, this is not a good reason to delay our wedding. And he's like, yeah, but he has seniority. And this is important because Kay's a big part of her character is not just the sort of neuroses and the anxiety that she's experiencing, but also the fact that but also the fact that she feels like on the one hand this is all sort of terrifying. On the other hand, it's like the most adventure she's ever had, and she's really, like, frankly kind of excited about the fact that she's stuck in this, you know, gunmetal madhouse, as she explains, and she sort of vacillates back and forth between, like, absolute hysteria and, like, this is kind of great, I kind of love this. And it's really interesting because she specifically expresses the idea that maybe she doesn't actually want to get married, and that, like, being trapped here might mean she doesn't have to get married. And usually Napoleon would take this as an opportunity to be like, oh good, now I can seduce you. And he just doesn't.
No, I mean, actually, like, you remember the episode with, like, Green Apple Affair, in which there was, like, this married lady who wanted to leave her husband, who was a scientist, I think, and Napoleon...
Yeah, but it's interesting because he doesn't even flirt with her, which is really weird for him. Like, usually, I mean, he flirts with everything that moves, and it's very interesting. Like, he just kind of, in the scene where she says, like, maybe my marriage is gonna have to be canceled or delayed, like, she makes this face of glee, and Napoleon goes through, like, a whole, his face goes through, like, all the stages of grief. It's really funny. He's like, I don't know what to do with this woman. She's so strange.
Yeah. There also is the...
her husband actually also has an arc in this episode because first when she got hot dogged, as we and Mr. Hemingway is like, oh my god, let me take you to Taylor's.
Yeah,
her husband doesn't have.
Yeah, it's like, in a weird way, it actually kind of solves her issue of cold feet, because she's like, oh, it turns out that when push comes to shove, he's not spineless. Like, he just is someone who is, in a lot of ways, very easygoing. And at this point, by the time the episode has gone on and all these weird things have happened to her, she's like, I am cool with that.
I also think that it's important to mention that, like, this episode brings back the motif of Napoleon recognizing that he's sacrificed, like, the typical, like, quiet, like, married life to be an agent, because he actually talks to, Kay about this, and Kay is, like, she's in this she's, at this point, she's getting all excited that she's, like, experiencing this new things, all these interesting things in the U.N.C.L.E. headquarters. She's not in her bouts of hysteria at this point. And Napoleon says that, like, there's a lot to be said for the quiet life. Don't knock it.
Yeah.
And I, like, that made me think, oh yeah, this brings back, like, the whole idea of, like, Napoleon just, like, recognizing what he's lost to have to do this life with Uncle.
Yeah, it's a good point. Because it's like, it happens in many episodes of season 1, especially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because he also says something along the lines of, he's talking a little bit about I'm trying to think of the, he's talking about the idea of getting cold feet. And he says something like, well, many people feel that way before getting married. And then he pauses and says, well, so I've heard. And it's really interesting, because, you know, it is definitely an admission of, like, he has not had that kind of serious relationship. But also his affect when he says it is very unreadable. Like, it's really not clear whether he's, like, tossing this off as a joke or whether he is, like, legitimately kind of like, yeah, it's weird that I don't have this life experience. And so I agree with you that there is definitely a little bit of a, like, calling back to the idea that being an Uncle agent means not having sort of this same standard life milestones that other people would have.
Yeah.
Mm.
But also in this episode, I mean, let's be real, he's pretty distracted by Ilya as well.
Oh yeah, this is a very heavy-duty, just, like, casual flirting episode. Like, the two of them just seem really, really happy and affectionate with one another in this one. Like, you really get the feeling that over the past couple episodes we've talked about how in the past couple episodes it seems like they've gotten a little bit of a relationship upgrade where there's been some kind of recognition that it's like they care more about each other than the mission, even if they're not, like, willing to admit that yet. And it seems very much like in this one they're kind of like, they're very sort of jokey, like, wink wink nudge nudge with each other, and it's really cute.
Yeah.
Even the fact that, like, they have the good cop bad cop conversation, like when Napoleon is saying, you know, oh, but you're so good at it, Ilya's response is, well, I'm always afraid I'm gonna get carried away with the role. I'm gonna have to go snarl at her. And it's just like, there's no reason for him to say it that way other than, like, they're flirting.
Yeah.
And similarly, so one of the weird things that Mr. Hemingway does to the Uncle office headquarters, which frankly I'm not totally sure how he manages, is he routes many fish through the pipes. So anytime anyone goes to pour themselves a glass of water, it's full of guppies.
Guppies.
And so it's great, because Napoleon pours a glass of water for Kay and is like, do you need a drink? And it's full of fish, and she screams. And about 30 seconds after she screams, Elia runs in with another cup of fish, which is this absolute grin on his face. And was like, so I see you've seen them too. And like, he's just so excited to show Napoleon his cup of fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember him, like, I don't know why, but Elia saying guppies made me unreasonably happy. Like, it's just...
Yeah. He also holds the glass real gay.
I didn't know there was a gay way to hold a glass.
Like, there's a certain sort of effete flourish that he has when he holds up the glass that's very sort of camp, I guess, is really what I'm going for. And it's a lovely little bit where he's super excited about the fish. He says guppies in a really cute way, and then he kind of like holds the glass up like, ta-da! And Napoleon just kind of watches this whole thing like, well, this doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, I gotta say that Ilya is very cute in this episode.
It's because he got to play with his pointy box.
He has his proper enrichment.
The cat's getting its enrichment.
And like in this episode, he shows off his geeky side as well, because he is constantly trying to get to the bottom of things with technical issues, and he touches the wall that is apparently under pressure. I mean, electric pressure, and he makes such a cute sound, like and it sounds very Russian to me, because I've never heard an American say that. And like in Russia, you usually say "I" or "oi" when you get hit by something. Like instead of "ouch." Yeah.
That's actually really interesting, because a lot of the time Ilya is like, yes, I'm Russian, with my Scottish accent.
His accent sounds alright to me, because
not
and also like
I think
he spent some time in the UK too, so like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, my husband and I watched The Great Escape, and he was like, oh, I'm excited to hear David McCallum not be doing Ilya. And then when we started watching it, he was like, oh, he still sounds like Ilya. And I was like, yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting, the things he does that are like more Russian versus the things he does that are not. And I'm glad that we have, confirmation on those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he sounds different in his later shows, because I don't think that he sounds quite like Ilya in Sapphire and Steel, but I'm not sure, because I never tried to make the comparison. But I think he had a more general British accent in that show. And I'm pretty sure in NCIS he has like a neutral accent or something.
I haven't watched either of those shows, so I don't know.
Me neither.
I think you should really watch The Parents. It's pretty scary, but it's such a good show. And it's absolutely low budget. It's like the lowest budget possible, but at the same time, it's a great show. Like,
That is a glowing endorsement, super low budget, and also scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, unfortunately, like, low budget and scary, often, like, the scary turns into funny.
Yeah. So if they manage to actually be scary on a low budget, that means they're writing pretty well.
It's a very well written show. It's like just one of the best shows, I would say, of the era. It's from the 70s. Yeah. And he also looks very good in it because he's still quite young. And he stars alongside Joanna Lumley. And Joanna Lumley is gorgeous, so... Oh, yeah. And in the show, there's also, like, this character... I mean, David McCallum plays Steel and Joanna Lumley plays Sapphire, but there's also Silver, and he has such chaotic bi vibes. So you can appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, at least part of why I had not looked into Sapphire and Steel is because it seemed very heterosexual to me.
It's not that heterosexual.
Alright, good to know.
I know. Yeah, because, like, me, like, even, like, some, like, gay or, like, bi subtext, like, it's a plus for me, and I think that for straight people, it's not really a plus, it's just kind of there, but when you're not straight, it's like, yes!
Yeah, I
agree. Yep. It's sort of funny, but also, desperate for representation, cough, cough, single tear. Yeah. But yeah. So what was I going to say? I'm trying to think of some of the other things that are, like, super cute when Ilya and Napoleon are together in this episode. There's the fish. There's his Rasputin impression.
The elevator scene.
Oh yeah. Do you want to explain the elevator scene?
Yeah. So basically, they find out that Riley was a bad guy, and they chase him, and he gets into the elevator. But Mr. Hemingway manages to stop the elevator between floors. So Ilya and Napoleon have to climb down the steel ropes to get to the elevator, and they take off their jackets, and it's very cute. Like, they have holsters, and they put on black gloves, and they start climbing down. But also in this scene, Napoleon calls Ilya IK.
Yeah. It's super
IKEA,
cute.
no.
IKEA, no! So, Logan is calling me out for my inability to type. Literally last night, I was trying to say something about Napoleon and Ilya, and my phone was like, do you mean Vaporeon and IKEA? And the answer to that is no, that's not what I meant at all.
Yeah, yes. So now he's I K.
It's super cute though. I feel like there's no other time in the series he calls him that.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. It's
or at least not while we're
realm.
Watching.
It's the same realm as him saying, "Call me Nappy."
IK and Nappy. I actually wrote down during the elevator scene, quote, Napoleon's tum-tum. Because I was thinking about Simpson. And when they go down in the elevator, when they take off their jackets, it's so obvious that, like, Ilya, David McCallum, weighs like 70 pounds. And when Napoleon / Robert Vaughn takes his jacket off, he has like a cute little dad belly, and I'm like, adorable.
Yeah.
Which then made me go, oh god, I'm Simpson. which is why I wrote Tum Tum. I also the fight that ensues in the elevator is actually surprisingly good. Like it's in really tight quarters and it's pretty brutal. Like so Napoleon ends up fighting with Riley, and I have to say I thought that Riley knocked himself out, but it sounds like he's dead.
I mean,
so
he got hit with the pen that homogenized his brain, but he was hit in the chest, so I don't know, maybe his insides are marshmallow.
See, I thought that he was actually hit in the hand with it. Like, I thought he hit himself in his other hand with the pen, and that he, collapsed from, I mean, you can black out from pain, so I sort of assumed that's what had happened, and then when I was, reading about the episode afterwards, it seems like the consensus is that he hit himself, in the rib cage and homogenized his ribs.
Yeah.
Oh god. I don't know why, but homogenized torso sounds way worse than homogenized brain because there's a lot more variety in the torso.
Yeah.
Great American torso pot.
And I mean, afterwards, Napoleon makes a very bad joke.
Yeah, so that's actually part of why I thought that he hit himself in the hand, was because he says he had permanent writer's cramp. And so I was like, oh, he homogenized all the bones in his hand, so lol, he can't write anymore.
I think it was because he hit himself with a pen.
Yeah, so I guess Riley dies, because he hits himself with the homogenizing
and
pen.
It's hilarious.
Although there's nothing worse than self-homogenization.
But also, when Napoleon does make this joke, Ilya takes a moment, but later he actually smiles. It looks so funny. I love this.
Yeah, this is...
Yeah, they kill a guy and then they just giggle.
Napoleon and Ilya are terrible people. I actually literally wrote in my notes, permanent writer's cramp, nappy, really? And then I wrote, wait, is he dead? So yeah, their gallows humor would be a little more appropriate if the guy just, liquefied his hand, but I guess he liquefied his heart, so...
Yeah, all his organs liquefied together.
There's two other super cute lines or scenes with Napoleon and Ilya where one of them so when Hemingway is in the building, so he comes into the Uncle office repeatedly, and he just kind of wanders through their doors because he has a device that can reverse the polarity and make it so that they open without the ID badges. And there's a scene where Napoleon and Ilya, for absolutely no reason, are just standing in the hall flirting with each other, and Ilya sort of adjusts his necktie and makes himself look cute, and Napoleon is talking to him while this is happening. And then, so Hemingway comes up behind them and asks for directions, and they give him directions, and then he leaves and goes down the hall in the opposite direction, and 30 seconds later, all of a sudden, Napoleon's face just, goes totally weird, and he just is wait a minute, I don't think that man was supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And that's a super cute scene with them. And then the other one, he says, Kay says something about how she doesn't want to be in a room with Ilya again because he's a bad, bad man. And Napoleon says, it's a streak of sadism. Ilya's always been a little unstable. which makes me think of the episode where Ilya dresses up as an officer with a riding crop and
Yeah! Yes, this is what happens when you, like, come on, guys, keep it in the bedroom.
Yeah.
It's like the beginning of a series long trope in which Napoleon just loves to troll Ilya behind his back.
Yes, definitely.
I would also like to mention the scene in which, like, after the guppies, Kay says something like, I think I will never forget this day. And Ilya just inserts himself between Napoleon and Kay and says, yes, I rather think so too. I think today one will never forget. And it just sounds like he's so petty for some reason.
Yeah, Ilya's very, he's very up in this episode because he's sometimes very positive and very cute, and then other times he's sort of irritated, but not in his usual sort of grumpy fashion, more in it, like he's sharper when he's irritated in this episode, and it seems very much like he's having a high energy day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's getting a lot of play time with the string.
I really hadn't thought about the fact that the pointy box was a symptom of Ilya being a cat, but it is.
Also, compared to, like, the next episode, which would be the Secret Scepter affair if we didn't cover it before, in the Secret Scepter affair, he is so low energy. It's like a completely different person.
I mean, if we think about it that way, that in this episode the two of them are being super cute and adorable and flirty and, like, really happy looking together, and then, as I suggested as a possibility for Secret Scepter affair, that Napoleon was like, hey, do you want to go on vacation with me? And Ilya was like, yes, please. And then he's like, surprise, by vacation I mean helping an old army buddy not overthrow a country.
Yeah.
Ilya would be like, I hate you.
Yeah.
And I guess it also shows that Ilya is very comfortable working at U.N.C.L.E. because he's, like, in his element and he knows everything and everyone. And I guess it's relatable because, I mean, we had kind of him as autistic, right? So he's, like, comfortable when he knows what to expect.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But, like, he doesn't quite know what to expect, but at the same time he's, like, in his element and he's comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it does seem like in the U.N.C.L.E. building, he often is at his sort of silliest. Like, a lot of the scenes with Ilya throughout the series where he kind of is more openly playful are ones that take place either in Waverly's office or somewhere else in the Uncle headquarters. And I feel like that is definitely interesting, thinking about the idea that he is someone who does require some level of, like, routine to be comfortable. It's gonna be rough if you're a secret agent.
Yeah.
He's kind of, like, more alert outside because he's constantly waiting for something to happen.
Because he's a cat.
Yeah, and it's so
Yeah.
HD, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, people with ADHD are basically cats, right?
I mean,
I can't comment on that. I don't have ADHD, but
I will say that anytime someone pulls out a laser pointer, I just God, the next hour is lost. This is completely unrelated to anything, but I had a delightful moment today as a teacher with ADHD with a student with ADHD in which I said, "Have a good weekend," and his response to me was just, and the child laughed after making a pterodactyl noise at me. And I was like, I think that he and I have communed on a really deep level because he understands that I understand his noises.
Oh, it's so funny. Because of you, so funny.
I was like, I have those noises inside me too. I just don't let them out at work because they'll fire me.
Yeah. I get that though, even though I don't have ADHD, I do make strange noises too because I like instead of like sometimes like my mom will ask me about something and I'll just respond with noises instead of actually talking. And
same.
She's like, use your words, and I'm like, sorry.
I feel like 100% there may be days with Ilya and Napoleon where one or both of them is like, use your words to the other.
Oh yeah. I mean, they both probably make so many noises.
See, I feel like Ilya would be the kind who would be like, tap, 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 tap. Like, he would totally be like a fidgeter, whereas Napoleon would make like mouth noises and be like,
yeah.
This is my, I feel like I've mentioned before that, like, I always end up being, like, one of the two people that I ship together is on the spectrum, and the other person I ship together is ADHD, and it might be because that's the relationship I'm in. But it's like, the two neuroatypical ship is the best ship.
Absolutely. I mean, I wholeheartedly, because I mean, at least it's relatable.
Yeah. What are neurotypical people even like?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're supposed to be functional.
That sounds fake. But yeah, I definitely agree that Ilya seems like he's kind of in his element in this episode, and he's super extra cutie pie because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel.
Okay, you go first. I will talk later.
Okay. So, one of the other things, we talked about the fact that Hemingway is Waverly's brother-in-law, but the scene in which we find that out is actually really, really funny, because Hemingway has been wandering through the building, just, like, causing havoc, and all of a sudden he just wanders into Waverly's office, and Waverly has his back to the door, and, like, he's looking at his console, and Hemingway comes in, and Waverly basically is just like, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" And it's completely unexpected, because up until this point we've been led to believe that Hemingway is some kind of, like, thrush agent or an insurgent of some kind, and Waverly just is like, you know, how's life? How are things going? How are your experiments going? Are they keeping up with you? And it's suddenly very clear that, like, throughout the episode, Waverly has been really weirdly dismissive of the idea of, like, shifting the time and place of the conference or doing anything to shore up security. And it's been really strange. Like, he's usually a crotchety old bastard, but he seems extra crotchety in this episode up until the point you discover that, well, it's because he's been playing along.
Yeah. And like, also there was... I wanted to speak about Hemingway, actually, because you remember that I told you that in the early episodes, when they were filming them, Leo U.N.C.L.E was often ill. and they were thinking about maybe replacing him with another actor because, well, they said that maybe he won't be able to play Waverly all throughout the show, and actually, Richard Haydn, I think his name was, who played Hemingway, was the candidate for this replacement. So this was kind of his pilot episode. But of course, he never replaced Waverly.
Oh.
So can you imagine if he was the chief of U.N.C.L.E. later? It would be like
it'd be a lot more unhinged. Yeah, more than it is now. Like, like at least, like, U.N.C.L.E. has, like, this crotchety old man kind of reining everything in. We wouldn't even have that.
Yeah, I feel like he would be much more like, what is the word I'm looking for? He would be very encouraging, I think, of some of Napoleon's nonsense in particular. Like, I feel like he would be like, yes, this is a good stress test for the system.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas Waverly is like, well, just die then if you're gonna do something stupid. Yeah, there's a great, like, Waverly just die then line in this episode, but I'm forgetting what it actually is. Oh yeah, so
then perish.
Yeah, so in one of the early parts of the episode when they first know that someone is attacking U.N.C.L.E. headquarters, but they don't know actually what's happening at all. Napoleon and Amelia go into Waverly's office and they're asking about, like, okay, what do we do if we see this guy? And Waverly's response is, well, don't shoot. And Napoleon's like, so don't shoot unless he's going to kill us first. And Waverly's like, don't shoot.
Yeah.
And when you don't know that Hemingway is his brother-in-law, what that comes off as is basically like, it's just fine if you die.
Yeah.
It's just Waverly. Waverly being Waverly.
Yeah.
I guess we
Yep.
always ship him with another character because he's so caring.
Waverly is he definitely is a number one boss mug, and he definitely bought it for himself.
Yeah.
Actually, there was a scene in which Napoleon and Lydia find out that Hemingway is not a bad guy, and it was pretty grim because he was like walking around playing his tricks on people, and he stumbled upon a dead body in a laboratory. And
oh yeah, we completely forgot to mention Riley doing a murder.
Yeah, Riley.
Yeah.
But later, Mr. Hemingway found the body, and it was like a pretty grim scene, I would say, because it's like a complete shift of the tone.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's very well done because, like, it actually, they're actually, like, it feels like everything skids to a stop.
Yeah.
So it's been this kind of rollicking episode where all this stuff is happening and it's really sort of chaotic, and then all of a sudden, like, literally a door opens, Hemingway turns around and says, I'm turning myself in. And we don't know why, and then he explains, I found a body. And it is really a very good scene.
Yeah.
Also, the scene where Riley does the murder is both, gruesome, but also kind of hilarious, because the scientist is like, yeah, I'm an explosives expert, and I'm gonna try all the things on this, and so, I'm gonna treat it with chemicals, and I'm gonna treat it with heat, and then I'm gonna, detonate an explosion on it, and Riley's like, detonate an explosion on it, eh? And then he comes up behind him and homogenizes his brain.
Yeah.
The brain homogenizer is actually horrifying.
Absolutely.
Like, we've been joking about it, but the idea of someone, like, just coming up behind you with something that shatters your skull and turns your brain into pudding is not okay.
And, like, there was a scene in which Dr. Eager demonstrated how it works on a glass skull, I think. And it was pretty scary on its own.
Yeah, when she demonstrates on the crystal skull.
Crystal skull. Oh my god.
Yes.
Where's Indiana Jones?
Well, let's see. If it's Crystal Skull time, then it would actually be the 60s, wouldn't it? So the answer is he's old and crotchety and dealing with his terrible son.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my god, it was such a good movie.
Also, I feel like there needs to be some kind of Indiana Jones Man from U.N.C.L.E. crossover fic now, though.
I mean, we could talk about like Han Solo being named after Napoleon Solo. Napoleon is Harry.
Oh my god. Yeah, a universe where Man from U.N.C.L.E. and like U.N.C.L.E. in Star Wars exists in the same universe, and Han Solo was named after Napoleon Solo.
No, I'm saying this just because like Star Wars came out 10 years after U.N.C.L.E. ended, so.
Oh, you mean like actually, not like in the universe.
But I think George Lucas denied it, but at the same time, he couldn't not be aware of the Man from U.N.C.L.E., you know?
Yeah. I feel like if you were a genre filmmaker in like the 70s, there's no way you couldn't have some idea of like one of the most popular TV shows from the prior decade.
Yeah.
That'd be like if you were writing like a comedy movie now and someone was like, oh, this is really something similar to something that happened in Friends. And you'd be like, I've never heard of it. Like, it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Just like cultural osmosis.
Yeah, I agree. I also wanted to talk about the title of the episode because it's like, it's an allusion on the thing that Kay is like Alice who came to Wonderland, and I guess Mr. Hemingway is the White Rabbit. So.
Yeah.
Who do you think other people are? Like, is Mr. Waverly the Duchess or the Mad Hatter or the Red Queen?
That's a very good question. Also, I feel like the uncharitable thought that just came into my head is that makes Napoleon and Ilya Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
No! This is not an AU I'm signing up for.
Unfortunately, I also just always think of, the Disney cartoon version of it, so, like, they would just be perfectly round.
Yeah.
We are the Eggman.
I mean, they are.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a couple of things that are mentioned in this episode or like joked about that are definitely intended as sort of like Alice in Wonderland references, but I feel like none of it is pervasive. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of offhand jokes as a way for Kay to kind of come to terms with what's happening to her. And
yeah,
so
definitely.
I don't know the extent to which we could, like, potentially map the characters who are not directly involved in the subversion that's occurring.
I mean...
because in a way, it's almost like they're all kind of put in an Alice sort of position because Hemingway is in some way screwing with all of them.
Yeah, I agree, but it's just like... It's just for fun. I'm not saying that they were intended to be some characters, but like, you could agree that Mr. Waverly has some Red Queen vibes.
Oh, 100%. Instead of off with their heads, just get shot and die. Then
Ilya turns into the caterpillar when he smokes weed.
Oh yeah!
See, I was thinking that we would have to have Ilya and Napoleon be the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, because I'm pretty sure they're married, right? And the Dormouse is their adopted child.
Yeah.
Wait, the Mad Hatter's a furry?
Do you call someone a furry if they're married to an animal? Like, I feel like that's really rude.
Yeah, true.
Just because your husband is a rabbit.
But how personified is the hair? Depends on the adaptation, I guess.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the book, all the animals are basically people, so it doesn't make much difference.
Except for the flamingos, which are croquet mallets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess I'm out of hot takes. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like this is it's a really enjoyable episode, and again, it's one that I feel like when you give the elevator pitch for it, like if you're like, yeah, it's an episode in which a lot of wacky things happen at Uncle headquarters because Waverly's brother-in-law is testing them. Like, it sounds really dumb, but in practice, it's a really good episode, both in terms of, like, it's fun, it's funny, the action is good, it's tense, it's got a bunch of good character moments, Kay is a really great innocent, and I feel like all the parts just kind of come together into, like, a really nice cohesive whole.
Absolutely, and, like, it's
definitely.
one of these episodes that you can actively enjoy watching, and it's very good to watch. So, next time we will be looking at the Bow Wow affair. And I don't think that Logan has seen it yet, but
I haven't, because I haven't seen all of season 1. I've seen the season 1 we've done on the episode, and some of the late season 1, and some scattered episodes through the rest of the show, but I have not seen the Bow Wow affair.
it's an episode that's caused a lot of ire from fangirls because Ilya had a female love interest.
What? What?
It is, however, balanced out by the fact that he 100% is macking on an Italian vet.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it next week. I hope that if you have not yet watched the Mad Tea Party Affair, that you do so, because it's a great one. And we will see you next week to talk about puppy dogs and Ilya's brief foray into heterosexuality. Signing off!
Yeah.
Have a lovely night.
Yeah. Have a lovely rest of your life.
That makes it sound like we're never coming back.
Just get some die.
As Waverly would say, perish.
Yeah, then perish with Waverly laser eyes. Bye.
Bye.
Don't die, actually.
Yeah, we would really prefer if you don't.
Yeah.